Final stop, Brazil. Book 2, Life After Hell, chapter 10, Sad News from Germany. After more than 1 year, I received, to my great surprise, a letter from Germany, of Kathy. When opening the letter, the picture of a baby fell out of the envelope. I didn't need reading to know that Catherine and her husband had put a third child into the world. I was not touched. What made me angry, however, was the fact that they put children like rabbits in the world, but had taken away mine anyway. Reading the letter, my anger still grew. I should finally stop my accusations against her and her family. Although Michael had a pretty bad start in Germany, but she hoped that he would turn the corner. My stomach almost turned. I learned that Michael had spent his birthday in a home because Madame was busy with having babies. My answer was a very bitter letter, as I emphasized again that she took the meaning of my life and all the hope of me, and that my only wish was that Michael returned to Spain. She and her family finally left him in peace. How much I hated Nigerians in respect of Chris and her husband, because they are the biggest criminals on earth. Even for terrorists, as I wrote it, I could have more respect than for Nigerians, because they were fighting for a score, but these criminals were acting out of pure greed and went over dead bodies. Finally, I asked her to write me no more, never to write again. I didn't want any more lies, nor did I need her pity. A whole year she had left me burn in hell without notice. Even worse was the struggle for Michael, which I eventually lost, on Michael's cost. It wasn't any fault of her children. They didn't choose their parents. Therefore, I answered the attached letter of Marcus, my oldest grandchild, and the only one to which I had built a relationship. But even he had been manipulated by her, as she manipulated Michael. I should not argue with his mom, because he wanted to come once again on holidays to Spain. Max he would also miss. I wrote to him so that he could understand that I was no longer in Spain, but far away in Brazil. Advised him to look on a map of the world where it was. I left not out that I was not here voluntarily, but avoided the word prison. Instead, I wrote that evil people made sure that I could not leave here. Of Chris, I mentioned nothing, because I didn't want to destroy his childish illusion. However, I wrote to him that there was only one way for us to spend another vacation together, in Spain, and that was if he persuaded Michael to go back to Spain. I even managed to add a few more lines for Michael before the mail was picked up. Asked him again to get in contact with Cande. Michael was the only way for me to save my stuff, if it wasn't already too late, especially after the arrest of Chris. Kathy's letter I threw in the trash. I could not and didn't want to forgive. It was too late. Again, I began secretly to collect those tranquilizers I was given every evening, but didn't take them regularly, and thought once again to take them all at once at some point. A certain amount of these tranquilizers would certainly achieve the target I had in mind. What I had to lose except my life, the people that had meant something to me had long forgotten. Nothing and no one could I return to. Every day was getting harder for me to survive. Julia, who had the good fortune to be a Brazilian, and beside the teaching, she also worked in the administration, called me one evening into her cell. She had secretly looked into my file and informed me now that it contained a request for a transfer to Tremembé, issued by the consulate. A new shock to me after I thought this issue was finished a long time. Why did the consulate betray me like this in such a malicious way? Together with Julia, I wrote an urgent request for interview with the director. Julia herself would see to it that this letter arrived. The next morning, I received a letter of the consulate. Strangely enough, it included an advice of Mr. Sturm, what I had to do and to whom I had to turn to in order to avoid a transfer. I also received, without any covering letter, a formal education protocol about Michael. It is observed that Michael doesn't show an adequate performance and social behavior in school and in the after-school area. This was made clear by numerous contacts with the police and the criminal justice system. Additionally, had been multiple disapprovals in the previous high school. Ultimately, the SOS Children's Village described his behavior in the home context as desolate. Reading broke my heart. My Michael, always lovely and quite reliable, indeed with adolescent mood, but still correctly. In Spain, he never had trouble with the police. Now he was treated like a potential criminal, as a problem child with whom no one knew where to go with. That this would happen in Germany, I knew all this beforehand. I was dead sad and felt so helpless. Even the thought of kidnapping crossed my mind. Michael had to get out of Germany. They had added a short but sad letter of Michael in which he was begging me, of all people, for help, because he didn't endure this new home. Instead, he wanted to go to his sister. I couldn't do anything. If he remained in this home, he would perish spiritually. If he went to his sister, he would slip into crime. It all made no sense. At noon, I had to hurry to fill in the new shopping list and therefore missed lunch. For the first time in this prison, grilled steak and chips. In the evening, I was called to the director, who assured me that nothing of what the consulate claimed existed. I needed not to worry. They would not transfer me anywhere. For not blowing Julia, I couldn't tell her about the request in my file, but no longer trusted her words either. Due to this conversation, I also missed the dinner, was hungry and irritated. Tachi had occupied the entire cell by washing clothes, and I couldn't even prepare me something to eat in the cell. For the first time, we had a serious dispute between us. I took 3 tranquilizers and was asleep long before Tachi and Sheila would sit down together for dinner. On Friday, I was told by a South African colleague that she received permission to call her family. I had received up to this day not even a response to this request. I didn't get permission to go to the library, so I would have to face an endlessly long weekend with nothing for me to do. I was totally depressed, swallowed tons of tranquilizers, watched a bit of TV, totally disinterested, ate very little. To reply to Michael's letter, I just didn't have the heart. It occurred to me just too heartbreaking. Tachi and Sheila noticed long ago that I withdrew myself completely, and also they knew about my sorrow, but no one could really help me. There was no light in this endless dark tunnel inside.